to our second digital equity public forum. This time around, we've got some new feedback, new ideas, a presentation from VHB, which is our partner in this work related to the Massachusetts Broadband Institute. We're in the first cohort to work on a digital equity plan because of the commitment that we have, one, to equity, but also the chronic gap out in Western Mass for viable, reliable internet. We're working with private partners to get fiber, but most importantly, we need to understand in the community what are your priorities and what you want to see in this plan, what you need as far as support, hardware, as well as education. There's a whole bunch, there's an array of questions and feedback that we're really excited to get from you. And I have to give kudos to eMedia, to our IT team, most of our IT team in the city, Karen and Eleanor, but also the Congregational Church. So it's been really fun and fulfilling to use this space for community events, and we are very grateful for it and the location. So next we're going to have a presentation. There are 6 people online. Hello to you and thank you for tuning in. Anyone after this event or if something pops into your mind, please get a hold of myself, IT at easthamptonma.gov if you want to add something. But thank you very much for participating tonight. Drum roll. Is that your drum roll? Yeah. Thank you.
It's always lovely to get such a good introduction from the mayor here. So, first and foremost, hello, my name is Jennifer Nelson. I am an urban planner with VHB. We are one of the consulting partners assisting Easthampton with their digital equity plan. We are doing this work through funding that came from Massachusetts Broadband Institute, or MBI. So tonight I'll give a quick overview, a quick presentation of the work that we've done so far. And then, as I'm sure you've noticed, we have some stations set out here, so we'd really love to get some hands-on feedback, interactive feedback from you about the actions and goals that we have prepared for the plan. And I also just want to mention Krista over there. She's also from VHB. She's an urban planner. So she's also been doing a lot of digital equity work. She is working primarily with 5 communities in northern Berkshire County. So there's definitely a lot of overlap in the concerns and challenges that we see in Easthampton and northern Berkshire County. So thank you, Krista, for also being here. So first and foremost, I want to note that this project was funded by the Massachusetts Broadband Institute at the MassTech Collaborative under the Municipal Digital Equity Planning Program. Funding was provided by Massachusetts ARPA State Fiscal Recovery Funds. So just to quickly give some background, the 2 primary goals of this project are, 1, to assess the city's current efforts with regard to digital equity so that the administration can create goals and guide future decision making. And then 2nd, to provide the city with some preparatory materials to assist with future funding opportunities. Additional funding is now trickling down through the state and will be facilitated through MPI as well. So those are the 2 parters of this plan, the 2 goals. Shown to the right here is the State of Massachusetts Digital Equity Plan. That's the really big one. That was created by Mass Broadband Institute over the past year. In December, there was a chance for a lot of the communities to put in some feedback to that plan and really shape it and tailor it according to communities' needs. The second smaller plan is the Town of Randolph's Digital Equity Plan. VHB created that one, and it was just finalized in January, and that was the first plan to be submitted to MBI. So, like the mayor said, Easthampton's right on Randolph's tail. Like, we're definitely still in the forefront within this work group to get the digital equity plan wrapped up. So why now? So the concept of digital equity has been around since the world started using devices, but the concept of digital equity and the reprioritization of this area as an issue really came about during COVID-19 because everything shifted online, right? Our whole world basically transitioned online. I know I was attending school and meetings from Zoom. There were a lot of people who didn't have access to devices, so they couldn't go to work or attend classes as they would have if they had those devices. So there was a lot of money that trickled down as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the way that we changed our world to address some of these gaps that really were more pronounced during COVID than ever before. So this specific project for Easthampton has been going on for roughly 6 months. We kicked off the project back in July, and we started off with a research phase of our project in which we collected a lot of data from the census. We collected data from the Federal Communications Commission, FCC. We started talking to some of the digital equity champions in the area, such as the IT department. And that's when we really started to kick off this research in this presentation, or in this plan. The second phase was dialogue. This was when we interacted with 7 different stakeholder groups, including the libraries, the public schools, the Council on Aging, and we talked specifically with them about the kinds of devices that they are using in their institutions, what devices that they may be missing, whether they're having any trouble accessing the internet, and what offerings they provide to residents and visitors and business owners in Easthampton. That began to shape a few more of our goals and action items that are out on the table before you today. And then we also conducted some online engagement. So the state, through their state digital equity plan, created a statewide digital equity survey, and that was available for all residents in Massachusetts to complete. So we were able to download some of that data and garner a bit more information about internet speeds in Easthampton and also the affordability of internet prices in Easthampton. And then we had our first public meeting on October 25th. And that was primarily with some of the stakeholders that we already talked to, but we were able to get a little bit more community feedback from that meeting as well. And then lastly, the third stage, which is what we're in right now, is synthesis. So we're taking everything that we've learned from the research and the dialogue phases, and we're synthesizing that into a final plan that will help to assess Easthampton in their work to digital equity to date so far, and guide them in the future endeavors and prepare them for future funding that will be coming down from the state. Okay, so the 3 pillars of digital equity according to the NTIA, which is the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, is internet, devices, and then digital literacy, which is also training. It's only when you have all 3 of these that you can achieve digital equity for everyone. So this is really the sweet spot, and by assessing each of these components individually, that's when we can kind of understand, okay, where is Easthampton doing really well, and then where does Easthampton need to be doing some work, and how can we create new partnerships to potentially address some of these challenges, because obviously it's a lot of work to achieve digital equity in a city just through the city's IT department. You can't do that actually. You have to be able to bring in other players, and that could be locally, that could be in the state, that could be in the region. So that's really the sweet spot of digital equity, is being able to fund and sustain all of these programs. So as part of our research towards internet availability, we found that data says that 99% of Easthampton's households are served or are serviceable, which means that they could be connected to internet if they so chose, by internet providers, and that's through the FCC. Again, this is something that NBI and other organizations around the nation have said, and this is kind of iffy. We know that this data is kind of iffy. There's definitely some wiggle room here. this is where public feedback and public input really becomes crucial, because there's definitely data out here that shows that everyone is connected, but this is also being reported by the ISPs, right? So they want to show that there's higher levels of connectivity, and maybe they might be blowing that out of proportion to who's actually being served. Some of the challenges that we found in relation to internet adoption was speed, reliability, and affordability. In terms of internet affordability, we found that 89% of households in Easthampton have a broadband subscription, and almost all residential internet subscriptions in Easthampton are controlled by one ISP. And because of that, there could be inflating prices. Easthampton could definitely benefit from more market competition. And I know that's something that the city is already working towards by connecting with fiber providers and other ISPs in the area. And from the statewide survey, 35% of Easthampton respondents to the statewide survey reported having a somewhat hard time paying for internet services, and 5% reported having a very hard time paying for services. And you'll see on the right, the graph shows ACP enrollment as a percent of total households. So for those of you who do not know, the ACP program is the Affordable Connectivity Program, and it's a $30 subsidy for low-income families to put towards their internet bills per month. So about 14% of households in the zip code 01027, which is shared by Easthampton and Westhampton, this is just how the data is geographically separated. About 14% of households are enrolled in the ACP program. One thing to note here, though, is that ACP is coming to an end. So that is going to be a big challenge for people who are currently using this subsidy. They will have to seek alternate methods of finding cheaper internet or finding a different kind of subsidy. In terms of device access, 94% of Easthampton's households have a computer, according to American Community Survey data, which means that approximately 500 households still do not have a computer. And again, another caveat of this data, it may seem like, okay, 94% of Easthampton's households have a device, but what kind of device do they have? What number of devices do they have? For example, if you have a household of 5 people, if you have one device, that probably isn't going to cut it nowadays. If you're accessing schooling online, if you need to be doing homework, if you need to be doing any type of remote work, if you need to be doing other kinds of daily activities on devices, such as accessing or paying your bills or accessing telehealth. If you only have one device, that's just not going to cut it, especially if that device is aging as well. So this data isn't always, it has to be taken with a grain of salt because it doesn't necessarily show the full picture. Next, we have digital literacy. So people, even if you have the internet and even if you have a web-enabled device, you might not have the appropriate skills or knowledge to use it. I know during the pandemic, when I started going on Teams and Zoom every day, sometimes I did not know how to share my screen. I did not know how to complete certain tasks. Sometimes submitting homework or submitting a project was difficult because we were using new kinds of software that I was unfamiliar with. And that's where digital literacy comes into play. So the kinds of activities requiring digital literacy are vast. Some of them include remote work or education, paying your bills, using social media, drafting documents or media, accessing telehealth portals, participating in community activities. So any kind of interaction that you might be having online, that does require some wherewithal to know, okay, am I doing this correctly? Or am I, are the messages going through? You have to have some kind of understanding of how to use the technology. In terms of in Easthampton, what residents are having trouble with, this is from the MBI statewide survey. A large percentage of people are having difficulty searching for or applying for benefits or resources for their families. Sometimes finding transportation information can be tricky, participating in their local community could be tricky, or accessing healthcare or telehealth services. Those were, small percentages of people, but still it's highlighting some kind of pain points, some pinch points here in the community that the Easthampton should kind of be aware of. So now we have our digital equity champions and community resources. These were largely our stakeholders that we talked to throughout this process. Like I said, back in September, we had 7 stakeholder sessions. These were 4 of them. So the Easthampton Public Library is definitely a big community resource in Easthampton. They offer some free devices for the public to use. They also have technology help sessions, and they have some training courses. When I talked to the library director, they said that they're piloting some more specific training sessions that are specific to needs highlighted by community members themselves. So they're already starting to kind of tailor and narrow down their offerings to more specific kinds of training. Easthampton Public School District, it's a one-to-one Chromebook program, which means every student receives a Chromebook that they take home with them. If they're in high school, that's when they get to take home their Chromebook and do their homework online and submit things online, do group assignments using Google Classroom. The public school district also has public internet for students and staff. They have 40 hotspots for LEND for the students. You have to be eligible, and that's a more specific process that I outlined in the report. But the fact that they offer hotspots was definitely a good thing to note for this report, because it seems like some students do not have access to reliable Wi-Fi. So even if they have a Chromebook, if they take it home, they don't have internet, it doesn't do them much good. So that was really good for us to note as well. And they also have an advanced focus on online safety. So the Easthampton IT department does a really good job, and they have some programs in place and safety nets within their internet platform at school to make sure that kids are being safe online. But they definitely want to do more of that as well. eMedia is a great community resource. Not every community has a media station that's dedicated. That's as dedicated to bringing really awesome tools to the community. So they have a range of devices and services like a podcast studio, a black box broadcast facility, and they also broadcast municipal meetings like this. So they help to keep the public up to date on everything that's going on in the city. We also talked to the Council on Aging. The National Digital Inclusion Alliance, NDIA, highlights seniors as a potential population group that's at risk to falling into digital equity gaps because of lower access to devices or lower access to internet. So the fact that the Council on Aging has a public computer and offers some even small forms of one-on-one tech support is really great. I know that the Council on Aging is really adamant about pursuing more of that kind of that funding, and then also dedicating more staff resources to that. In one of my conversations recently with the Council on Aging director, they are going to try to implement a digital navigators platform, which is basically where people can, or their staff is going to be trained to help people with tech support specifically, in addition to all their other duties. So that could definitely be a perk for residents in the community as well. And they're also trying to expand their resources so that they're available not just for residents aged 55 and up, but to everyone. So now we're heading into the goals, which will be where I start to ask you to provide some feedback for us. But together with the stakeholders and with the IT department and the steering committee for this project, we've put together a list of 7 digital equity goals. The first one has to do with establishing Easthampton as a leader in digital equity and inclusion through local, regional, and state collaboration. So there are a lot of organizations that are taking on similar tasks to Easthampton. There are a lot of municipalities that are doing digital equity plans that are looking for these partners to resource share, to go after funding together, and to potentially share staffing in the future. So that's a goal that we think Easthampton should really prioritize, because again, Eleanor and Karen, as great as you've been, we know that you are only two people and you can only do so much in bringing digital equity to the whole world. So I understand that that is going to be a big priority for Easthampton moving forward. The second goal is improving the efficiency, efficacy, and quality of local digital equity initiatives by prioritizing citywide knowledge and resource sharing. So the first goal had to do with going out and making partnerships. The second goal has to do with bringing people together and making partnerships between the organizations and the institutions that are already here, that are already putting in the work, that already have the connections with residents that are going to be digital equity champions. So really bringing together and kind of formalizing those relationships and the initiatives between these partners and organizations is crucial as well. The third goal is expanding digital inclusion through community outreach and strategic long-term planning. So it's great if these organizations, if these partners, if these leaders can get together and form goals and go after funding, but if you can't get the community involved, it's really very limiting what digital equity actions can be put into motion. So I think community engagement is going to continue to play a role in this plan as it grows, as it develops, and then as the city starts to implement some of these actions, community input and feedback will still lead the city in making those next moves. Goal number 4 is ensuring affordable and reliable high-speed internet, which is quantified as 100 megabytes per second over 20 megabytes per second for all community members. So this is a goal that may be a little bit trickier because it has to come along with private partnership. A lot of the internet service providers are private entities, so it can be a little bit difficult working with them, but it could also be an opportunity to, again, share resources and really voice the community's needs for these internet service providers so that they can come up with creative solutions to address them. Goal 5 has to do with facilitating access to digital devices, both in the home and in the public realm. So that is addressing where these institutions that we've talked about, such as a library, do they have enough devices? Do they have the right kinds of devices? Are they up to date? Are they serving residents well? So that's where the community can assess those needs and potentially go after some funding through grant money to get new devices and update their current offerings. Goal 6 is promoting digital literacy with community education programs to empower individuals with the skills to use digital technology efficiently. So that is having one-on-one tech support. So when you need to call somebody because you don't know how to turn your TV on, it's knowing who to go to for that resource. If you're looking for group training, it's knowing who to go to for that group. That group discussion, whether that's the library or the Council on Aging, it's basically having the skills and the tools available to you through these institutions to learn how to use your devices and then continue to use that knowledge and share that knowledge with others as well. And then goal 7 is more related to smart city technology, which is a different kind of technology, which really helps the city understand its residents' actions, movements, needs in a different kind of way, using the technology that's becoming readily available now and that is being paid for in some instances by private entities or by governments to really understand a community's needs at a deeper level.
The equity, one of the reasons why we applied to be in the first cohort, it ties to a lot of initiatives that I think people thought were forgotten, put aside. It started in 2019 with an equity visioning session with Third Eye Network, which is connected with the City of Rochester's Department of Economic Development, Diversity, and Inclusion. And they came and they spent 4 days in the city interviewing a whole bunch of people to identify gaps in, the difference between Easthampton being a welcoming city and Easthampton being an inclusive city. So from that, we then, unfortunately, all bore witness to the murder of George Floyd, the mayor's pledge, which then led into a rather lengthy report with a lot of action items that the city addressed, mostly fiscally. So the idea would be if we make more paths to fiscal wealth generation and equity, that it would help all of the generations in Easthampton, and talking about affordability and getting older and wanting to downsize but can't because there's nowhere to move in Easthampton once you sell your house for all the money you can right now. But also, what was more and more important is services that Easthampton residents across the board that they did not have access to, or they had to take a day off from work, or they had to figure out transportation, were all available through the internet. And this is even before COVID. And there wasn't enough financial literacy, technology literacy, all of the people didn't have the right computer, like it was too slow or whatnot. And that really made a big difference when we did equity and inclusion surveys across the city. Go forward one more time. In the next 2 to 2 months, we will release a fiscal equity study that tracks every single dollar from 2017 where we have spent it and who it has helped. And in the process of doing that, again, digital equity was a huge miss. The city doesn't do enough outreach, we don't offer enough services, we don't coordinate our data, but also folks like telehealth and more intricate telehealth and Zoom telehealth things. People just didn't know how to use it. They didn't know it was the same as an actual health intervention. I'm almost done.
Yeah.
That said, it really is incumbent upon local government to fill that gap. And we can't hold our breath and wait for state or federal, because we've seen with the subsidy, $30 to help people afford internet, it's running out because state and federal government aren't going to fund it. We can't rely on that here in Easthampton. That's just not who we are, and we don't want to do that. But then this particular cohort, my long-winded story here, is just like every infrastructure study, every infrastructure project we've done, the school project, is that we have a process to do planning and feasibility studies, and we leverage that to get money. And I would challenge anybody in the city to show me a feasibility study, a cohort we've participated in where we have not delivered grant dollars to make it happen. So this is really important because we're going to leverage this and we're going to go after the money and we're going to deliver it. I should have said at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one thing to note too is, so this is where the NBI's Digital Equity Planning Program, again, it's money that came from ARPA, it was delivered to the states, and then NBI helped to kind of award that money accordingly. So Easthampton won grant money to do this plan. But now NBI has just announced it, like back in January, there's gonna be $100,000, up to $100,000 in grant funding available for each participating community to start putting these action items into practice. So that's part of the reason why I think it's important tonight to understand where the community's priorities are too, because that could help
we already have the framework for that application.
Right.
It's going in as soon as we can get it.
Yes.
Done. So yeah, it's just really, really, really important. And we're really very happy to be a part of the first cohort, and we're surprised how comprehensive it was. And it wasn't something we could just like sit back and get on Zoom. We had to do a lot of work. And it was worth it because we saw what the power was, but we also figured out where the gaps were.
Recording in progress.
And we want to make sure people have the right equipment and training. And ultimately, the goal of goals would be once your computer isn't up to the speed it needs to be, or won't take faster internet, that the city has a part in getting you a new piece of equipment. which over and over, I look at Drea. Drea knows this inside and out. Like, one computer bought every 10 years doesn't cut it anymore, and things are moving fast. And I do feel that local government owns a large part of keeping residents informed, not just in the city, but state and federal government and the world. That's information we all should have very easy access to. So.
Thank you.